forget, you can listen to his thoughts and his chances tomorrow. First up then, Matt, you can come straight back in. There's a few shouts for the real whacker. Tell us why, and also give us your...
You've missed the ITV walk.
Wrong race.
Oh, have I? What have I missed?
The Ballymore.
The Ballymore.
He's only doing the ITV main channel races.
Yeah, because the Ballymore's on ITV4, so I just skipped past it. Sorry, everyone. Right, well, yeah, Hermes Allen is 4.2. This is the Ballymore. And Gaelic Warrior 6.6, Imperial Passe 4.3, Goodland 7.2, 12.0 Champ Kylie, 17.0 in the pocket. All right, the Ballymore. I tell you what, Adele, you come in first of all because you're on your own with this one.
I thought a few other people might have picked him, but obviously not. Maybe I see something completely different. I think this horse has got a serious engine. Like, it's amazing how the summer can kind of really help a horse mature, and he's certainly one that has matured massively. I mean, the Cheltenham was a completely kind of different test for him. I mean, the ground was awful, wasn't it? And it certainly wasn't stopping him. Just hard, I think, to find any kind of holes in any of his performances. We know he handles Cheltenham, he handles various grounds, he's got a good attitude, a really good gallop. A relentless gallop, I think, more than anything. The fact that 6 pulled up in the Cheltenham, I think, kind of shows that it was, you know, very much quite a test that day. Yeah, so I just think, like I said, I couldn't really find any negatives about him unless anyone else has got any that I don't know of.
I know a man who does. You're going to Deasy again. It's ridiculous.
And it's not that I'm against Hermes Allen as a horse. I agree with what Adele says. If I could choose any of these as a long-term prospect, it'd be him. But you look at the way Paul trains his horses. Had Denman beaten in this, Rock on Ruby, Brave Man's Game. He's already said Ballymore's not his be-all and end-all. So I think there's an element of how hard trained he'll be. But there is also a trend. All 20 winners of the Challow Hurdle to have run in the Ballymore were beaten. 10 of them went off 6.0 or shorter. The reason for the bad record is what Adele was talking about, the ground. They provide hugely different tests. There's a real stamina-sapping effort in the Challow. Contrast the Ballymore, quicker ground, start in the middle of the course, the big sweeping bend. They don't get racing very early, tend to go steadily. A test of speed at the trip, which Challow winners don't tend to be suited by.
So you like the Mullins horse?
I do. I'm really sweet on him. I think he should be clear favourite for it. He really impressed me in the Moscow Flyer, relaxed and professional, and that's important in the Ballymore because they go steadily, jumps really slickly, got a real turn of foot. If you're setting out the criteria you want for the Ballymore, he's a perfect match. And at the time, the Moscow Flyer form didn't look great, but she could be anything. Looked like winning the Apples Jade the other day until her stamina ran out over 2.5. The fourth one next time, then ran well at the Dublin Racing Festival. So on visual impression, Impere Pass is the best novice hurdler I've seen so far. And having the ideal profile, he's a banker for me here.
Charlie?
Yeah, I just echo that. I mean, you got the vibe as well that he's one of these horses that just continues to impress way more on the track than he does at home, which I think is likeable. Again, I wouldn't be against Hermes Allen. I think he's a similar sort of profile. It doesn't sound like he shows a lot at home, but brings it to the races. And if Deasy is to be believed and the Tuesday starts off on heavy ground, it's going to be bottomless by the time they race on Wednesday. So it might suit Hermes Allen. But for me, Impere Pass, for all the reasons Matt said.
All right, there's a couple for Impere Pass and then a few more out a little bit more left field. Donn?
Yeah, I share the view on Hermes Allen. Like, a lovely horse, but the Challow Hurdle, it tends to be more appointed for a longer race. At Time Hill, he won the Challow. He ran really well in the Albert Bartlett. Micheál Lyman won the Albert Bartlett. Even Denman got beaten in the Ballymore, having won the Challow Hurdle. So I think it's going to be a big ask unless the ground comes up soft. But yeah, I just think Champ Kylie is kind of an under the radar horse. He's a wee bit weak now on Matchbook, which is a little bit of a worry in terms of him taking his chance. But I just thought that, like, his win the last day in the Lawlers of Naas race, that was a really good performance. I know Danny Mullins rode a really good race from the front and dictated, but he quickened up well, he saw the trip well, and he's got that mix of pace and stamina that you need for a Ballymore. He was sent off as a short price favourite for the Royal Bond Hurdle, an odds-on shot for the Royal Bond Hurdle, and he was just too keen that day. He wasn't as keen the last day at Naas. He settled better in front. and I think a reproduction of that nice run will bring him close. He should progress from it as well. So yeah, as long as he goes and takes his chance in the race, I think it's his only entry at the festival. So I can see him going there as a Willie Mullins second string for sure behind the Empire Pass. Like, I agree with the lads on him. He was very good the last day, and he won his maiden over 2 miles 3. Then he showed the pace to win a Moscow Fire over 2 miles. So he's got lots of arrows in his armory. But I just think Champ Collie is a wee bit underrated.
And Deasy.
Yeah, I'm going for in the pocket, Henry the Bramhead's horse. We actually covered this race as one of the first kind of previews that they would Matt in December, and I put him up then. And he's pretty much the same price now. He was well back on seasonal debut at Wexford and won very easily, and then he stepped up in grade. Then he took on 3-card Bragg and Absolute Notions at Naas in a grade 2, and it just looked a very classy horse. He was weak in the market, and he still managed to just breeze past. No, he only won by an extra 3-card. Bragg was coming back on him, but I thought he had plenty in hand there. He finished second in that head, Tom, but he was not beaten 9.5 lengths. But again, 2 miles is too short. I can't see him being 16.0 on the day. I think he's completely overlooked. This is a very, very good race. You could make a good argument for all the top 6 in the market. I could anyway, except for Parmesan. But I'm going to go for the bigger price one in the pocket.
Right, I'm very much with you on Hermes Allen, Adele. Don't you worry. Are we done with anyone else want to add anything? I think we're about there, aren't we? We've got 4 different selections. 2 with Imperial Pass, Hermes Allen, Champ Kylie, and In the Pocket. We move on to the Brown Advisory then. As I say, Thunder Rock lines up here for Ollie Murphy. You can hear his thoughts on that tomorrow morning. Matt, you tell us the stat here. I guess it really relates to Ty the Hill mainly in the race, who no one's putting up. And then you can come in with who you like and why.
Yeah, so since Young Hustler won 30 years ago, all 90 runners that had 2 or more full seasons over hurdles have been beaten. Every horse needs treating individually, but as a staying chaser, you want to get over fences as quickly as possible, not putting miles in their legs slogging around in 3-mile graded conditions hurdles. So that's very much against Time Hill. Whilst I like Jerry Colomb, I'm just a bit worried about the ground for him from an anti-post perspective. Providing there's cut, I can see myself backing him on the day. But at the moment, I'm interested in the Real Whacker. I thought he was really good in the Dipper, which is a good trial for this. He won over course and distance in November. His bold, jumping, front-running style, he looked an absolute natural, improved a heck of a lot so far over fences. And yeah, he is in the Gold Cup, and I know the trainer's still talking about it. I can't believe off just 2 novice chases they're going to do that. So I'm fairly sure he's going to turn up here. I think this is going to cut up quite badly. And so I still think that he could shorten a fair bit. So he's the anti-post bet. And then I'll assess on the day about whether I bet Jerry Colomb as well, even at a short price, because the ground's in his favour.
And absolute scenes as Toombs and Mulrennan agree, Adele.
God, it was a race that I was kind of like I kind of was struggling to kind of really commit to one, and Patrick Neville is a bit of a character, and he does really well. Like with what he's got, he can train this guy, and he's always fought a lot of the Real Whacker. And as Matt's already said, you know, the Dipper has always been kind of like a good pointer for this race. So listen, he is. Like he gallops and he jumps, like he's brave as well. So, you know, if you're going to put your money on something at Cheltenham, you want to be putting it on a horse who won't go down without a fight. And he's a horse that certainly won't. So that's why I've got him inside for that race. In a race that was a little bit, I couldn't, you know, like find a really, really strong one. So I just thought he is like, I know what I'm getting with him. You know, you're going to get a run for your money.
Liam says Matt's worried about the ground for Jerry. Has he seen the weather forecast? But he has made that point, Liam, that anti-post wise, you wouldn't back in now because you just want to know what the ground is going to be like. Charlie, where would you be with the ground for your selection? Do you think he has to have genuinely soft ground?
Well, I suppose if you're listening to Connections, there's that possibility. But I'd have thought the ground is, well, at the very least, it's going to be good to soft, and for that reason, I think he'll definitely be there. was tried to take him on at Sandown. It was a big mistake. I think he's a gorgeous horse. I actually think Balco Coastal, who he beat at Sandown, could run a big race in the Turners if that's where he's going to end up. I think he's also the big engine as well, and he beat him readily. I think the likes of the Real Whacker in here going a good gallop will only help him. He seems to switch off. He jumps nicely enough, and he just looks to have the world at his feet, Tom. You know, I think this horse that could be coming back for a Gold Cup next year.
Donn first, then Deasy. You can come in one after each other.
Yeah, I agree with Charlie completely. Jerry Calam, I was against him at Sandown as well. I thought the combination of 2.5 miles Sandown and good to soft ground, it just wasn't a stiff enough test for him. And it did look like Balco Coastal was travelling better over the pond fence and around the home turn. But he's just so gritty. He just dug deep and won well in the end. And Gordon Elliott says he doesn't do much at home. A totally different horse than Mighty Potter. And he's never been beaten. Bumpers, hurdles, fences, he's never been beaten. The step up and trip to 3 miles should be a positive for him. He won over 2 miles 7 over hurdles on yielding ground at Thurles back in January last year. So I think he obviously he handles a bit of cut. He's good on easy ground, but the step up and trip, I think, should compensate for the fact that he's going to probably or possibly face faster ground than he has been doing in Ireland. But I thought at Sandown the last day, he answered a few more questions. We learned more about him at Sandown because Sandown, it's not as stiff a track as Cheltenham. Obviously, over 2.5 miles on good to soft ground, he showed pace enough to be able to win a Grade 1 race to Scilly Isles Chase under those conditions. So yeah, look, he's a potential Gold Cup horse as well next year, please God, as Mighty Potter is. I'd just be interested to see what they do with Gaillard de Menil and Ramillies, because it looks, you know, they're kind of both shaping up for the National Hunt Chase, but it wouldn't be surprising if, given their own by Marie Donnelly and trained by Willie Mullins, that one of them might run here. It looks like Gaillard de Menil has had the National Hunt Chase on his radar for a while, so Ramillies might run here, and I could see him running well at a bit of a price if he does. But no, Jerry Calam, I think he's the most likely winner by a fair way.
Go on then, Dees.
Yeah, look, just on the Real Whacker, he's visually very impressive. He goes off out in front and he jumps and like, you know, visually very impressive. But if you dig into it, he beat Indigo Breeze there for he's a Gordon Elliott horse. Like, he's rated 135 now, and he beat him by 3/4 of a length. And Indigo Breeze gave him a fright. I mean, he wouldn't be able to work with Jerry Calam when Jerry Calam was hungover. And the same the last day, he over 2.5 miles in the Dipper. He beat Micheál by 3.25 lengths. Jerry Calam beat him by 24 lengths at Sandown, going up that hill. So I can't have the Real Whacker, and I think Jerry Calam is the real deal. Basically, I think he's absolutely class, and he'd probably go off very close to even money or odds on in the day.
Nick Palfrey, I think, agrees with you. Next year, the Real Whacker will be in the Ultima. He still might be in the Gold Cup this year. Never know. Unlikely, but they gave him that entry. Let's move on to a belter of a race and a betting heat, I think, as well. The Champion Chase. So prices, first of all. Last time I looked, it was last year's winner at the top of the market, Energumen, although Edwardstone was shortening up and closing in a little bit. We'll flash them up for you very shortly. DC, I think you're spot on with Edwardstone, 2.96. Energumen is 3.05. So Edwardstone with Matchbook does head the betting. Editor G 7.8. DC.
Yeah, I look, tipping a fabric. We can't say there's value in his price, but I think out of them all, he's probably been the best of them this year. For all that he lost the last time, he just gave Editor G an easy lead, and if he had got going, you know, 5 or 6 strides before he did, he might have caught him. There's no way he'll get an easy lead this time, and I mean, Gentleman to Me will be up there with him. I just think Edwardstone probably doesn't get the credit he deserves, and he was a good winner of the Arkle last year, and I think he deserves to be favoured here. And I think he's a right chance.
Yeah, with you all the way there, as is Adele.
You're muted then.
Am I? Oh, yeah. I could never desert him anyway. I absolutely love Edwardstone, and yeah, I mean, Tom, I don't know, maybe could have made a move a little bit sooner, but it's hard, isn't it, when you're trying to ride your own race, and especially after what happened at Kempton, he was probably just kind of making sure, he got himself into a good rhythm and made sure he was jumping well before he kind of really challenged him. Editor De Geet had gone already. I'm glad someone's tipped him though, because that horse does deserve to be mentioned. Like what he's done this season is the way you can just go out and like he gallops, man. That horse is like, he's so brave. So I'm glad someone's mentioned him. But Edwardstone for me, like I still think his head was down literally just after the line. I think he had kind of had the phrase, he was like up when he kind of really needed it, but then after the line it was down. I think he might have just edged it, but but I'm going with him anyway. So, but I'm glad someone's mentioned Editor De Geet because he does deserve mentioning.
Yeah, go on, Matt. You can jump straight in there and give us just your trend as well.
So the trend is that winners of this season's Desert Orchid Chase are 6 from 14, 144% profit. Hunters tend to look at the Desert Orchids at right-handed, sharp, flat track, completely different test. And that's all true, but the common element between the Desert Orchid and the Champion Chase is both races are all about speed. Whereas races like the Tingle Creek, and in particular the Dublin Chase and the Clarence House, when it's at Ascot, are more a mix of speed and stamina. And there's a misconception you need a 2.5 miler in the Champion Chase. You don't. It's all about speed. And it's about jumping at an eyes-out gallop. So the Desert Orchid tends to be a much better trial than the market gives it credit for. Just going back to that Clarence House, remember that Edwardstone did get past Editor De Geet. He traded at 1.01, I think, but Editor De Geet just out-battled him at the end. And I think the old course could really suit Editor De Geet. It's a speed test, 133 yards shorter, possibly on quicker ground. It'll help. His jumping will be a real asset there. Edwardstone is a really good, strong stayer at the trip. Really lovable horse, very good finishing effort generally. But in the Arca last year, they didn't go quite as quickly as usual. And in the Desert Orchid, where they probably went a bit too quickly early on, just seemed to get him out of his comfort zone, and he tipped up at the 5th. So whilst I very much respect Edwardstone, I think the price differential between them is too big. So the value bet is Editor De Geet. We're going to come on to Gentleman Demi in a minute. He's one I'd definitely be looking at the vibes are in the run up to the race because he's very much a spring horse.
Donn, tell us more.
He is. He really is. Like he beat Edwardstone in the Maggle Chase last year. So, and maybe Edwardstone underperformed a wee bit after the Arkle, but I don't think he underperformed that much. And Gentleman Demi, and like Aintree suits him really well. He jumped well. He's a free going sort, and like he was very disappointing earlier this season. He ran 3 times, got beaten in all 3 races. Early in the season, through the winter, on soft ground, for all that it was officially yielding at Leopardstown over Christmas. But then he came out at the Dublin Racing Festival in the Dublin Chase, and he was very, very good. He had done Vegan for company for over the first 3 or 4 fences, so he didn't get a solo in front, but his jumping was very good. He beat Blue Lord impressively. Now maybe Blue Lord underperformed a little bit as well, but he's a coming horse. All his form last season was in the spring from March onwards, and he's just a horse who I just think he's under the radar. Like he was a massive prize for the Champion Chase before the Dublin Racing Festival. He's not as big now, obviously, as he was then, but he's still big. And as Matt was saying, the speed test that is this track at the Champion Chase on good to yielding ground or good to soft ground or thereabouts, that will suit him really well. And look, it's a hell of a matchup between Energumen and Edwardstone, with Editor De Geet in there as well. But I think Gentleman Demi he's a horse who's underrated and therefore overpriced. I think he'll run well at a big price.
Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Donn not put Gentleman Demi up at the Dublin Racing Festival as well, and he is a spring horse, no doubt about it. And he's beaten Edwardstone. The 2 at the top of the market are short, considering they've both shown that they are vulnerable as well. I mean, the one thing I definitely don't buy into is Energumen being put off by the white paint on the British fences last time out. As in, I think that was a really poor excuse, if I'm honest. But he could bounce back. But like I say, I just think both of them are short when they've shown that they are beatable. And Editor De Geet is a worthy opponent, and Gentleman Demi especially so. You know, he's obviously second season chaser. He was a Grade 1 winning novice, and he was very, very impressive last time, beating a good horse in Blue Lord. So I think at 10.0, he's way overpriced in this.
He was put up by Donn at 8.5 at the Dublin Racing Festival. He's also one of Matt's horses to follow this year. Okay, any other bets? Just the horse and the race they're running in. Matt Toombs.
Encanto Bruno in the bumper.
Donn McClean.
A Dream to Share in the bumper.
Adele.
I've gone Irish Hill in the Coral Cup. If he runs in it, he's also entered in the Martin Pipe as well.
Okay, now I suppose you never know, do you? Charlie, I love this one, and so will our producer Dan Hussey.
Well, Langadan in the Coral Cup, and unless one of my best mates is putting me away, that is where he's running.
Wow.
Now, I hadn't checked which race. I just assumed you were going for the pipe. He's in the pipe as well, isn't he?
Well, I got told he's going for the Coral Cup, so and like I say,
shit on the chat. I can confirm he's losing it right now.
But it wouldn't be beyond one of my best friends to be putting me away. So he might be doing this to make me look like a complete prat. But yeah, Coral Cup, Langadan.
Okay.
Is your best friend called Micheál by any chance?
Called what?
Micheál.
No.
No, was me.
Definitely not.
Was me.
Just for Twitter purposes, Charlie Post says Langadan will definitely run in the Coral Cup. Deasy.
San Ra, if he goes in the Grand Annual, great chance. And Beacon Edge in the Coral Cup.
Okay. Best lays, just the horse. I will, trading wise, I'll be backing Edward Stone in the run. I'm sure he'll trade bigger. Matt.
Time Hill.
Don.
An argument, I think he'd be bigger than he is at the minute.
Okay. And DC.
I will be place laying Hermes Allen, and I'll be place laying an Orgamine.
That's it for lays on the day, right?
Yeah,
Good.
I haven't got one.
Fine. Best bets then. Hermes Allen for me. Adele.
Hermes Allen.
Nichols. Matt.
Imperial Pass should be favourite for Ballymore, and I think he will be on the day.
Disgrace. Don.
Gentleman de May at a price in the champion chase.
Charlie.
Jerry Colomb.
And DC.
Johnny Kalam as well.
He changed it at the last minute. It did say Sonwa, but he's changed it.
That's the wrong section there.
Yeah, well done. Thursday.